Well, welcome to the WOW Empress Codes Intentional Journal Readings. This segment is all about helping you to align with your true dominion destiny for this life phase. We love helping individuals start to unlock their life codes so that they can start to move forward accurately in the present moment. And I am the WOW Empress, AliNICOLE WOW, and my motto for this segment is that your new now destiny codes aren't found in the stars or in the cards, but they are found in the life codes. This has been a very exciting series that myself and my STAR Queen Celebrity-preneur Protégé, Gina Gardiner, have been doing. And it's been a real joy to do these particular sessions within this series. And something I want to just start off by saying, which I normally talk about this in every session that we do, is that the power of intentional journaling really helps you to be able to leverage your life in a more holistic way. And the benefits is that it provides these trumps and triggers, so to speak, prompts and triggers. And it's all about helping you to extract what I call your divine encoding so that you can bring forth your own unique information. This is what helps you to start to design your life from a place of true authentic expression. And you want to be able to do that at every phase, of your journey. And I call this the decoding to recoding, process, because this is what really accurately aligns you with your highest divine, the destiny trajectory. And going back to what I mentioned, using the power of intentional journaling, which is a very simple practice. And so during this series, we've been sharing a lot around the benefits of this practice, but also featuring different journals. And it's a very interesting experience. And so if you have not been following this particular series, you'll certainly enjoy this session that we're going to provide. It's going to be an intensive. And also, too, there's a playlist that you can avail yourself to with some of the other segments that we have, in there. So at this time, I'm going to welcome my STAR Queen Celebrity Protégé, Gina Gardiner. Gina, always thank you for being here with me during these segments.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much for engaging with me to do this. It's such a powerful way of actually being and engaging with your inner wisdom. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. And I co-sign with you in terms of, the engagement process, with this and what it does. And this has been, like I said, my absolute joy to be doing, this series. And today, as we're going to be doing an intensive, around this, we never know what actually is going to come up, with the journals that will feature. And so, on that note, Gina, let me actually share about that, because I realized I didn't mention that during these segments, we share and feature several co-authored publications and individual publications, as well. And they are all in intentional journal style formats. And what happens is that we showcase several and in categories, but we are present to see which ones are going to come up for us to do the actual intentional journal reading, around. And so it's very intriguing experience, isn't it, Gina?
It certainly is. We never know quite where it's going to take us, do we?
No, we don't. and during this intensive, we don't have a core theme, and we've done other, segments of this nature where we let a developing theme come up, for us. And there are segments where we do have a core theme, and certain publications we know that we're going to feature at least, but still, even with those, we don't know which ones will speak, to us to actually showcase. So, Gina, before we actually get started, with actually showing the different categories that we're going to, leverage today, would you like to talk about anything first, or would you like to go ahead and we just start featuring the journals and then we can kind of take it from there?
I think let's dive in, because the theme and how, one of the things I think, if you're listening to some of this for the first time, what is fascinating is how we don't set up a theme, but a theme emerges.
It does. And Gina, I'm going to ask, will you
Life
come
of
on
its own.
camera? Do
Yes,
you mind
certainly.
coming on camera?
Not at all.
Okay, thank
There
you.
we go.
Okay.
Yes, so the theme emerges, and it's amazing. We pick the books, and sometimes at complete apparent random, and you will find that the connection is very, very close, and it builds one on the other. So it's really magic in that way.
It very much is. Yes, it is. Okay, so what we'll do then is that we'll go ahead and start featuring the journals that we have present, and they are in great abundance. Yes. And then as Gina was mentioning too, we'll see how maybe a theme comes up and what builds off, builds off of those. All right. So Gina, which journal categories are you feeling guided to share first?
Let's start with the leadership ones.
Okay, so we'll do that.
So,
and there are several of them.
You'll have to forgive me while I locate the right pile. I'm surrounded by piles of books.
Oh, absolutely.
So do you want to start with mine or yours?
No, we can start with yours, your leadership pile. We'll start with yours.
Okay, so shall I just show them one at a time?
Yes, and do share the title and subtitle for us, please.
So it's time to become a beacon of light and hope. How to become an illuminating, enlightened leader and light the way in challenging times. And we certainly are living in challenging times. And as a leader, it's really important that that you are someone that engenders hope in other people.
Absolutely.
So the next one is taking, I always get the camera direction wrong, taking the bullshit out of leadership. Get real with yourself and make the shift to greater accountability and authenticity, so you achieve greater success and more meaningful results. So there's that. And then for people who are perhaps at the beginning of their leadership journey, there's Enlightened Emerging Leadership, an intentional journal and planner to support your development as an enlightened leader. I just want to make the distinction. This is about the beginning of your journey as an enlightened leader. So you may very well be an experienced leader, but someone who's not actually seen leadership in the context of enlightenment. So but if you are an emerging leader in the sense that you are just starting out as a leader, then learn to be an enlightened leader from the start.
Absolutely.
Second one is Enlightened Authentic Leadership, how to lead yourself and others more authentically, an intentional journal and action planner for leaderpreneurs. There's that. Enlightened Limitless Leadership, an intentional journal for those who are committed to becoming enlightened limitless leaders, a sacred space for you to explore your limitless self. And then if you are a leader, the chances are you're in business and of course you want to make profits. So it's Enlightened Profitable Leadership, and that's how to lead yourself and others more effectively, an intentional journal and action planner. And then Soaring to New Heights as a profitable, enlightened leader. So you may be very, very successful.
Yeah, business leader, a profitable, enlightened business leader. Yes.
Absolutely. And it's how do you take things to the next level? So an intentional journal and action planner to help successful business leaders achieve the next level of success and profitability.
Nice.
And then we have Soaring to New Heights as a profitable business leader, and looking at the relationship you have with money and with profits. And again, it's about helping leaders get to the next level of success and profitability. And I believe that achieving success in itself initially is actually the easy bit. But when you've got to build on that success and keep taking things to the next level and the next level, I think that's when things get really tricky.
Yeah, you're right.
We've got the Profitable Enlightened Leader's Journey, and that's a strategic workbook to support you in your journey to becoming a profitable enlightened leader.
Would you show that cover again? So that
That
people
one.
bring it. Okay, there we go. Nice.
And that's my pile of leadership, although we've got some profitable ones, but I'll leave it at there at the moment.
Okay, well, if you want to segue to go ahead and show those, you can, if that's the next pile jumping out at
But
you.
then we've got Journey into the New Era of Profitable Enlightened Leadership, a strategic planner to help you find, define, and align yourself as a profitable enlightened leader, and creating profits from the inside out. And that's an intentional workbook to create new levels of comprehension to underpin profitable productivity and give you and your business the profitable advantage.
Okay, and then we have the financial one, The Right Way, right? That one would be a leadership publication too, I believe.
Yep. Which
did it run away?
There it is. Discovering New Levels of Financial Power the Right Way, and that's WRITE, a financial planner on profits composition for enlightened leaders.
Yes, there we go. Awesome. All right, so I think that does cover the leadership how for you. So where are you feeling? Which ones do you want to feature next?
Shall we go for the empaths next?
Yeah, certainly. That's where the guidance is, and you can feature those.
Okay. I've worked with many empaths over the years, and a lot of times people aren't quite sure whether they're an empath or not. And so I've created an intentional workbook to explore, are you an empath? And how do you discover your true identity and purpose?
Okay, bring that over so we can see it better. Okay. Okay, there you go. Great. An
intentional workbook to explore who you really are and the significance of that role as we move into the new era of consciousness. And then for those who do know that they are an empath, and many empaths are very good at self-sabotaging and playing small. And so this is harnessing the power of being an empath, a self-exploration, empathic empowerment guide for tapping into your limitless potential. And then stepping into your genuine power as an empath. And that's a 30-day intensive boot camp workbook to expand and accelerate your journey as an empath, and to get past the things that have been holding you back. All the time, all of our work is about moving forward, because if you aren't moving forward and you don't have momentum, then actually you are effectively moving backwards, because everything else is moving forward. And so this is about how you accelerate your empathic potential and discovering new levels of your limitless purpose as an empathic leader, a self-assessment action planner. And then soaring to new heights as an empath, and an intentional journal for powerful empaths who are ready to take things to the next level. And I think it's important to say that as an empath, you're here, you have a very distinct purpose. And any delay is not only holding you back, but holding the people you were destined to help. And so this is about those who are already successful, how to move on, and how to actually take yourself to a higher and higher level and have more and more of an impact within the world. And then lastly, sharing your empathic journey the right way, and that's how to use your experience to serve your higher purpose, leveraging love writing and publishing. And what I've learned from you, AliNICOLE, is such a powerful lesson, is that when you create a book sharing your experience and your expertise, it's there to serve those people who are at that level, but you can then move on to serve people who are at the next level and the next, and so on. So that's that group.
Okay.
And then we have a group which is a real mixture, really. So as you know, I have reached the grand old age of 69. But this is a journal called Genuinely New, And it's a powerful journal and action planner to help you if you're approaching 60 or over 60, discovering your new leadership identity, powerful purpose, and thriving life after 60. And I was having a conversation with a journalist this morning about this whole thing. We think you've taken 6 decades to develop the wisdom and experience and skill set. When you retire, unless you're going to use it in some purposeful way, that just gets lost. And you can help so many people. You know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And, you know, how often have you asked yourself the question, if only I'd known this when I was 20 or 30 or before I started this project, how could I have done things differently? And that's a journal which is really focusing on how you, as you get into your more mature years, that you can utilize that expertise to help other people. And that goes with embrace the author within, because in a sense, the genuinely new is talking about not just writing, but how you are showing up and using your experience, but then actually doing it through writing is a great way to do it. And there's lots of myths about writing, aren't there? And it's got to take a long time and it's got to be expensive and so on. And the reality is that you can publish on Amazon using KDP for free. And you can create something that is of use to other people very simply. And that shares my writing journey and how I've moved from conventional long books, although I've no doubt I'll go back and write some more of those in the future. But how you can use that in a very practical, easy way to help other people. Then there is a book that's very dear to my heart, which is Your Life in Their Hands, Where Does the Responsibility Lie? Which is a book that I wrote with my really good friend, Vicky Price. And it's about you taking responsibility for your health. Doctors are amazing, but don't just hand over the responsibility to your health to them.
That's right.
Take responsibility for supporting your own health and well-being along the way. But if you do find yourself as being ill, then the ideal thing is to create a partnership with your doctor rather than being a victim and just letting them sort it out and not questioning and challenging what they're suggesting, but doing that in a very constructive way. And that book's all about our stories and how we've developed a way of being with doctors. And there's some really practical stuff at the back, and then an intentional journal behind that. We are very complex beings. We have a physical body, a mental body, an emotional body, and a spiritual body. And we need to feed all of those. We need to look after them and have this holistic well-being. And one of the things for me is about how do we fill our batteries up? How do we allow ourselves to recoup our energy and our sense of equilibrium? And I share in my book, My Garden, Insights to the Window of My Soul. And that's a journal of reflection to explore the relationship with your inner wisdom. And I share with you not only my way of doing it, but also give you some practical ideas of how you can do that for yourself. And then there is an intentional journal for you to explore how you best serve yourself in terms of your spiritual journey. And the last one in that series is The True Essence of You. And that's my latest, hot off the press. Many people don't recognize themselves as spiritual beings. They think that's something pink and fluffy and that you have to wear Indian cotton robes and gaze into a crystal ball to be spiritual. But we are spiritual beings. And this is an intentional journal to help you return to the genuine self-awareness to achieve holistic well-being, your true life purpose and spiritual connection. And again, it sets out the principles and then it offers you an opportunity to do intentional journaling to really connect with that true essence of you.
Love that.
And then I have the conventional books, but those are the intentional journals. Do you want to see the conventional?
Absolutely. they are present, and who knows, they may come up for some reading.
Okay.
And people can actually do journaling around that, because
Yeah.
that's the thing too I want to mention, is that even when you have the traditional books, or ones that maybe don't have journals included, it's still good to be called and drawn to those, because you can do some journaling around what you read from other publications. So yeah.
My first two books, which I wrote in 2006, were written and looking at, the first one is called Kickstart Your Career. And that's practical ideas and strategies to support the development of leadership. And from the day you start, the day you enter the world of work, how to be the professional grown-up, how to, if you want promotion and you want to get ahead, it's no good waiting until the promotion is there.
Right.
It's about how you present yourself, how you operate. There's it's no jargon, lots and lots of practical ways that you can become that professional grown-up and be a valuable member of the team right from the outset. And so that's designed for people leaving the world of school or education, university, or if you're a work returner and you haven't worked for a long time and you want to brush up on how to do that. This book is looking at many of the same themes, but from the leader and the manager's point of view. It's how to manage your staff more effectively and pave the way to your next promotion. Again, it's practical strategies for the managers, the how-to book, no jargon, really straight advice. And that's based on, when I wrote these, 20 years of being a principal or a head teacher in a large school, 100 staff, and then working with dozens and dozens of other schools and hundreds of other teachers, helping them. And it's stripped out all of the educational jargon, but the principles are identical. And my next book is called Chariots on Fire, The Winning Formula for Happiness and Success. And that shares some of my story, and then the practical approach that I use to living a very fulfilling life. And I've faced many challenges in my life. I've learned to walk twice as an adult. I ran my school for the most part from a wheelchair. Huge gift in that. And the gift was the development of an approach to leadership, which was unique, which is around getting people to take radical responsibility for themselves and a shared responsibility for the team. And so that's a book which has very much my story. And there's some case studies in there of people I've worked with and how they've taken control of their lives, using that to really illustrate the principles that I've shared in there. A very practical little book, Live Well, Eat Well. I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 1987. There wasn't a lot of information. It was very fragmented. So as I'd gathered all of the information about what you can and can't do and how to manage your diet and so on. So I decided, I kept on being asked the question, can you tell me how about? So I decided to put it in a book. So people can just go, if you've been newly diagnosed, then you can go and have a look at that. There's a letter to take to send to a hotel or to family and friends to explain the disease, because you have to be very, very strict about not allowing any gluten to enter your system. So there's that little book. And then Thriving Not Surviving, the 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success and Fulfillment. And this was written in 2017, I think. And it was the development really from the Chariots on Fire place to where I had grown, and looking at whatever client, whether it was business or personal, the 5 pathways were always looked at, which are beliefs, relationships, your attitude towards success and motivation, how you deal with change, and how finding a sense of purpose. And that has with it, it's got 3 journals, each one which lasts for 12 weeks. There are 3 journals there which go with the book, so that you can start to put in place what's going on in the book. And so each day.
Is that one of them that you have there?
That's journal 1.
Yeah, okay,
Journal
great.
2,
Yes.
and that's journal 3.
Awesome.
And one of the nice little things in there, we talk about in the book about gratitude.
Mhm.
And on each day within your journal, there is an opportunity to collect your gratitudes in your little thank bank.
Yes.
So if you're having a bad day, then it's really great to go back and look at your thank bank and recognize that you've got so much to be grateful for. And then the last one is the 7-day happiness challenge. And then again, that's a journal and looking at principles to help you live a happy life. It's your choice to be happy or not. And rather than give yourself a list of criteria that have to be in place before you can be happy, choose to be happy anyway. And that tells you, gives you a real strategy in how to do that.
Wonderful. Excellent. Wow.
Yes.
This is an intensive. Yeah, this is an intensive for sure. All right. So I guess we have what you have of mine.
I've got them already.
Yeah, over there. I will say to those definitely who have not been a part of this experience that I have about over 300 works on Amazon, but we have just a few that are here that we've been featuring too throughout some of the other segments. And again, some come up sometimes and some don't, but Gina, you go ahead and share the ones that you have there.
So I'm going to go with the wellness ones first.
Okay, that's right. Those are in categories as well. So, okay.
If we go back to my friend Vicky, who wrote the book, Your Life in Their Hands, these were some of the journals that I used with AliNICOLE to support my friend Vicky, who was fighting cancer at the time. And so returning to wellness, that's one. And it's a really powerful little book. It's an inspiring journal for remembering and reclaiming your wholeness. The second of that group is your inner healing pool. And that is an inspirational healing journal planner for creating wellness from within. And it's designed for leaders. Next, wellness is a state of mind. And that's a mindset mastery journal for wellness.
Yes.
And then lastly, in that little group is the Well of Transformation, an inspirational journal for accessing your inner wellspring of living water. And individually they're powerful, but when you work with them together, the power it's exponential. And that's one of the interesting things. I'd always, before I worked with AliNICOLE, thought, one journal, you work on that journal, but I've recognized that, I've got several on the go, and each day I think, right, which is the right one for today? And I would urge you to do the same.
Absolutely.
So where are we going now?
Okay, so you've got them. So you have, you've done the wellness. I know we have.
I think then let's go to, no, I'm going to leave that group till last.
Oh, the spiritual impact.
I'm going to leave that till last, yes.
Okay, all right.
So the next one is Red Root Riches for Empathic Entrepreneurs. And that's the basics of new dimensional root chakra healing for grounding your financial success and more. It's a journal prompts planner. Next, harnessing your empathic, profitable phoenixpreneur power. That's that one. And rising in new levels of your entrepreneurial empowerment and profit potential for high-end success. And it's a customized mini course creation planner.
Yes, and Gina is a wonderful contributor to that publication as well.
And then the next one is the new high-end Empathic Leaderpreneur Accelerator Factor. And that's an introduction to discovering your higher call to service as a leading empathic influencer, a VIP day acceleration workspace planner.
And Gina contributed to that one as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. So that's those three. And then I'm going to the human butterfly.
Do we have the eagle?
The eagle, I do. He's sitting in a pile on his own. Sorry. So this is the evolutionary empathic eagle's new high-end vantage point, successfully soaring with a higher impact and income perspective as an empathic economicspreneur action planner. And there he is, magnificent eagle.
Yes, and you contributed to that one as well.
So that's that group. I think then we're going to go to, done that. We're going to go to the Millionaire Monarch Metamorphosis Factor. And that's a transformational leader's intentional journal prompts planner for evolving and launching from your millionaire cocoon. And then with that one, the Millionaire Metamorphosis, and that's an intentional journal prompts planner for evolving and launching from your millionaire cocoon.
Yes.
And one of the things that you talk about is, people think about, well, I'm going to be a millionaire, and what it is about initially is having the millionaire experience, isn't it? And both those journals help you delve into what does that mean for you.
Right. I think we're going to build off of a theme here already. I can feel it coming, that this session may be about, the experience, and the holistic experience. So we'll see, how that develops. But when you were mentioning that part, that's what was jumping out to me, of course, the experience part. And that's something I, of course, talk and teach, a lot about. So we'll see how that.
But isn't it interesting that I think the difference between writing a book that people just read, and that's very valuable. But once people then engage in the intentional journal or workbook, it becomes their experience, not the author's experience. And so it's so powerful. Okay, next, we've got the Bee Water Cross Industries Factor. And that's the basics of cross-pollinating and watering industries for impact and increase. That's a journal planner. And we have the Becoming a Billionaire blog tour-preneur, and that's an emerging blogging-preneur's dream quest composition planner for designing a billionaire cross-pollination blog tour empire experience.
Yes, wonderful.
And then we come into what I call the spiritual ones. And the first one of that is Water to Wine, a miracles journal guide for creating conscious communion with the vineyards of life. We've got Psalm 1.3, Men and Women Planted by the Rivers, inspirational journal. And that's a very powerful little book.
Okay, great.
Don't be fooled, please. The size of the book has nothing to do with the power it contains.
Absolutely.
And in many ways, these last couple of books, which are little ones, my goodness me, they pack a punch. And this is called A Hymn Possible. And that's an inspirational journal planner for consistently achieving the miraculous. And I think this is my favorite of all of them. And that's a fresh new start with God. An inspirational journal for rediscovering your true connection to source power and life purpose. And I think it's my favorite of the moment, because for me, that's a very big part of my journey and expanding my connection and relationship with source. And again, such a lot of great wisdom and power comes through that. So yeah, your favorite.
Well, I am glad that you enjoyed that one. We have two more, I think.
We have two more.
Yes.
The Human Butterfly Effect, an inspirational journal to discover how your life purpose impacts on the world. And last but not least, and really important, Love Thyself. Be and give the love you wish to receive. And that's an inspirational journal guide for loving yourself first to love others more effectively. What an important message that's got.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Wow. So we have set it up with all of these journals, intentional journals for this intensive, experience here. And the word, of course, experience has come up again, And, we're going to do a little bit of deep breathing before we actually get started. But Gina, I am really feeling that we do start to build a theme around, the premise of the experience. So with that being said, let's take about 3 deep belly breaths, and then we're going to start allowing this session to take shape in terms of what journals are going to come out for this experience. Or also what probably will happen is that Gina, you and I will have some conversation just around the experience itself, and then we'll see. So I'm going to invite everyone. Let's take 3 deep belly breaths. And Gina, whenever you're finished with your breathing, then we will move forward.
Okay.
Wow, that was 3 quick, deep belly breaths there.
Big and deep.
Yes, that was deep for sure. Okay, all right. So Gina, let's have some conversation around the experience, because that's something within your experience, of course, with me, is something that I talk a lot about and teach a lot about in terms of being in the experience and sometimes being outside of the traditional, experience. But when we think about life itself, life has a series of experiences, right? And yeah, and since we are dealing with intentional journaling and starting to create experiences from that, bringing the inside to the external, reality, being able to see it. And as I was mentioning in the opening, is that's how you learn how to decode and then recode your reality. And so something that you brought up that gave the trigger prompt, for this to be sort of the theme that we were going to go with, during this time, was in terms of the Millionaire Monarch, those journals. You were mentioning about how it is about creating the experience, because that's what I have, in there. How do people create this experience for themselves without so much focusing on, let me try to get $1 million, or let me try, do it this way. It's, creating the experience, like discovering who you would be before that even occurs, and preparing yourself. And so what's kind of building at this moment, and Gina, you can tell me if this resonates, with you, in terms of where we can go, at least for this time, is, preparing for the experience. We need to be always preparing for not just the experience that's at hand and that's continuing to emerge, but there's ones that we want to create. And so we need to be in preparation to create the experience that we would like to experience. But also being open to, though we're in this experience, there's other experiences that could potentially call us, and we need to be sensitive to allowing other series of experiences to come in. Some people liken this to stepping out of your comfort zone, or expanding your territory, so there are other experiences that may be calling us. So I think we've got a good context to start building around, during this time. So what are your thoughts around that?
Well, life's not a spectator sport. And
By no means.
So many people allow life to happen to them rather than life happening through them and for them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the shift that takes place once you start to recognize that actually, even when you feel you have no choice, the reality is you can choose how you deal with that. And so there's always a choice. You're never absolutely stuck. But if you think you are, then that's the reality. And so recognizing that we have the potential always to be moving to the next phase of our life, the next stage in our development. It's an ongoing evolution if we allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. But if you don't allow it to happen, then you stultify, and effectively you're dying. You might not be dying physically, but you're dying at a soul level. You're dying at an energetic level, because there's no movement, there's no life, there's nothing happening. And so for me, intentional journaling is a way where people in a very safe space can explore those inner thoughts that normally don't see the light of day.
Right.
And explore them in a way that is non-judgmental. And it's interesting that once you open the door to that, and allow your unconscious mind some space, then, and it becomes a practice, then you will discover untold wisdom that you hold, that you have been putting a wall up between you and it because you've not given it any opportunity to experience it.
Oh, yes, I agree. And that's important because we can't actually create experiences, without that level of knowledge. I mean, experiences are taking place for sure, but we want to be intentional about the experiences that we are creating, And so actually, on that note, what's actually coming up for me right now that we can actually start with, and it's interesting, we're starting kind of at a very high vibrational energy for sure, is the becoming a billionaire blog tour-preneur. And I believe why that's coming up, because like the subtitle is about a dream quest and being able to create an experience. And there are questions even, within that particular publication about really defining what it is that we want and what is our quest, what is our dream. And so that's being very intentional about, creating the experience. And so, Gina, I'll allow you to be present, with that, because it may not be anything within there that comes out, but just that, for whatever reason, that one came first in terms of vibration for me to even speak from that. And I think, going back to what I was saying, it is about, getting clear in terms of, what is it that we want? What is our quest? What is our dream? And even though that is pertaining within that publication to that experience, but I believe that it speaks to the whole of anything.
Isn't it interesting? Just before we started to record this, I did my Leadership for Life TV and radio show on W4CY. And we were talking, the guest today and I were talking about that there's always a gift in the challenge. Absolutely. And one of the things that we discussed was the need for permission, and how often we are still listening to the voice of our parents or teachers or our partner who has told us we can't do something. And she shared a story with me that one of the people that she'd worked with had been told by her mother that she couldn't become a dancer, even though that was her absolute passion. And how all through her life she had done a job that she felt that her parents would approve of, but what she really wanted to do was to dance. And she'd retired, and she was now working with people with Alzheimer's, because it's been discovered that people with Alzheimer's through dance can reconnect with the music and who they were at the time when they first heard that music. And I shared with her, I'd seen a video quite recently of a very, very old lady sitting. She didn't look as if she was there, to be honest. Her head was bowed, her shoulders were hunched, and she looked as if she was asleep. And somebody put on the music from Swan Lake. And the most amazing thing happened, that she started to move her arms, and it was so beautiful. It turns out that she was a prima ballerina. And what we saw was her absolutely, she couldn't stand, she was in a wheelchair, but her arms were the arms of that young ballerina who was so beautiful and so fluid. And you would not have thought that possible. It brought tears to my eyes.
Oh, wow.
And so the question, what springs to mind from this journal is, if you're listening to this or watching this, one of the three questions that come out of this are so powerful if you allow yourself to really connect with your dream. And the three question is, what is it that I want? What is my quest? And what is my dream? And I would say to you, it doesn't matter how old you are, that lady that my guest was working with had found a way to dance. That was an amazing thing to do, to give those people who had lost themselves, find themselves in those moments that she was dancing, and she was teaching them to dance too. And even in her 60s, she's finally discovered her dream and is so fulfilled and happy because of it.
Wow,
You
that's
don't have to wait till
amazing.
you're in your 60s, do you? Please don't wait till you're in your 60s. But even if you are in your 60s or 70s or 80s, it's not too late.
Right. Oh, that is an amazing story, and such a profound wisdom, that you shared, because that's so true, and we're never too young or too old to create a certain type of experience. And you're right. The only limitations that come in are ones that we pose on ourselves, or things that we adopt from other people, and we adapt to their expectations and projections, in a sense, right? But when we come into our own truth, which this is something that intentional journaling does with unlocking those life codes and ultimately getting people into their dominion destiny, and so when we're in our divine dominion destiny, it's where we have dominion, and we have co-creative power, within that space. And this is the difference in terms of, people can be into different things, how they want to try to predict their future or whatnot. But when you can get the wisdom from within and then allow that to recode your reality, then then that is you having that co-creative power with source and having that true dominion that is unique to you and your blueprint, and as I mentioned, that's not going to be found in the stars in the cards. That is going to be found in your unique life codes. And that intentional journaling experience brings those codes from within, but also helps you to see the codes of life, the external codes. It illuminates that experience. So, being intentional about the experience that you're creating, because again, I feel like that's the theme that's definitely been building here, is being intentional about the experience that you're creating and making sure that it is aligned with you. It is, what is it that you want? What is it? What is your quest? What is your dream? And you have to believe that the dream that you have for yourself and the quest that you want is the one that source has aligned you with. And this is a partnership between you and source to bring about this unique experience. And yes, source may enlighten you in ways to say, hey, this may be a better way to go about this. But knowing that you get to participate in this creation, and that's what Gina was mentioning earlier about, you have choice. And so when you have choice, we have choice in a variety of different areas. We have to learn how to be the chief authorities of our experience, taking dominion, our rightful place and birthright in this divine human experience. And so, so I can go on for days around that. So, so Gina, is there anything else around this particular publication, or is there something you want to speak about? Or
I don't think so, but I think what I would like to share is, if I can find it, part of this is finding who you are, connecting with that sense, that spiritual inner essence of you. And I'm just trying, I have so many books here, you'll have to forgive me while I find
No, you're good.
I'll find the right one, because they have a habit of, they've got a mind of their own.
Yeah, it is very interesting how they can be categorized and organized in a place, and they'll somehow still take a life of their own, or hide,
Yeah.
or yeah, or so. Okay.
So
Go
this
ahead.
is the book that's been jumping out at me, The Intentional
Hmm,
Journal to help you to return to your genuine self-awareness, because it is a return. It's not new. It's
right,
about
right.
finding it. I opened the book, and this is, in fact, this is an excerpt from my own journaling,
Okay.
using my favorite little book, which is also
Oh
disappeared.
yeah. I'm glad that you are actually going there, because that actually really connects to what we were just talking about in terms of you and Source having this co-creative experience. And that journal was the one that actually was coming to mind, kind of to go to after that. But I just wanted you to to see which one was jumping out at you. But it's great because we're being segued kind of back to that. But all of that does connect to, as you're pulling out the essence of you, and now coming to this to read what the essence of you is coming out of this source
Yeah.
connection, experience. So yeah, go ahead.
So the trigger was journaling in a fresh new start with God.
Mm-hmm.
I won't read the whole of the excerpt. I just want to read you the paragraph that really drew me.
Okay.
I surrender to the greater source, and in doing so, I acknowledge, access, and accelerate the greater force which comes from and through source. I
Mm-hmm.
choose to use that power for greater good. I know in my heart of hearts that you, source, are supporting me. I embrace your unconditional love and the faith you have in me. And
Mm-hmm.
as a result, I'm all powerful.
It just gives me chills. I tell you, when I hear that, it just gives me chills. Um,
I think just what I want to say about that is, when you get past everything, the conditioning, people in telling you what you should and shouldn't do, when, the expectations we put on ourselves, the feeling that we're not enough, the feeling that, who am I? I'm only small, what can I do? And then you engage with the essence of that bit of journal
mhm,
that came to me. And I've shared it with a few people, and what's been interesting is their reaction.
mhm.
Because in me sharing it, the report back was, you've allowed me to recognize that I too can tap into that and
That's
have
right.
my own version of that. I'm
Mhm.
giving myself permission. And I think this issue of around giving yourself permission to be the best version of you, to connect with source, to be within the experience and be the experience,
That's
is really
it,
important.
right. Absolutely, absolutely. Well stated. And thank you so much for sharing, for sure.
My pleasure.
Mhm.
So where do we go from here?
Okay, so bring back up the essence of you. Actually, if you would hold both of those journals up together, and let me be present, with those, because this is about connecting to the true source connection, which is the true essence of an individual. And since both of these are, spiritual awareness publications, and doing the return, as Gina mentioned, is that returning to that wisdom that is you, that source connection, the truth of being a spiritual being. And so when we remember that, it is much like the story that Gina told when the woman remembered, you know, the dancing, they had, there was something that was in, and though it looked like she had dementia, Alzheimer's, so just kind of,
Alzheimer's, yes.
just disconnected. But there was that trigger that then connected her back to the truth of who she is, right?
Yeah.
And so she's connected back to that truth, and now she could move forward in whatever way, even for that moment, that she would be guided. What is that? That's an experience. So that's a created experience from
Yeah.
a trigger of life that already was. But now in that moment, it brings something new. Go ahead, Gina. You can
No,
say
I'm just agreeing with you. I mean,
something.
it's pretty profound, I think, that when we recognize that you know, we think this is all new stuff and we've got to learn it. It's actually just engaging and remembering it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it is about that, you know, that returning to that knowledge and that wisdom. And when we return, it is a new experience, but we do have to embrace and recognize, I should say, before we can even embody, that it is something that exists, you know, within. The experience is within us because the wisdom is within us to be able to then create um, the external, you know, experience. So on the note of kind of reclaiming and returning, so let's actually go to return to wellness. Because I think that that's something that is very important at this point, is because anytime we aren't living true to who we are, to that true essence, and that true source connection, then what happens is that we become, as the Bible would say, sin sick in a sense, but you know, but basically it's misaligned. But when we return to the truth of who we are, which is a state of wholeness, a state of wellness, a state of well-beingness, you know, and it's interesting. Also bring up wellness is a state of mind, because wellness is also a state of beingness, and I actually talk about that within that publication. So when we return to the state of wellness, and let's just call that wholeness and total well-being at this point, when we reconnect to that truth, we are already these things, already this experience, these areas that we feel so estranged from, so disconnected from. We realize that we are one, you know, with them. So let me get you to bring those back up again. I just want to be a little bit more present, you know, with these. So what I'm actually going to get you to do with return to wellness, turn to the back cover.
Yep.
Yeah. And
So
so,
it's there,
okay, so go ahead.
the excerpt.
Yeah, you meant, yes. I was going to have you just to share the image of it, but no, you can be guided to read that.
The
That's
back
fine.
cover's just writing.
That's okay. I just need to be, because see what it is,
Okay.
it's at an angle. It's at an angle. And sometimes we need to see things differently. So Gina, when you turn that back around, look, you can look at okay, so you see how the top, the excerpt is at an angle, right?
Yeah.
But the author's is just kind of the about the author part is just in kind of a general straight.
There it
Yeah.
is.
Right. And so sometimes in life, we have to see things from a different, like I said, from a different angle, even though we may be looking head on in some traditional fashions. The reason why this is important is because as we return to something, we may not be returning in the same way that we left it. So an example of this is that if you leave home and you went on a trip and then you returned, you actually may take a different route to return home, a more scenic route. It could be a shorter route, a longer route or so. So all the time when you're returning somewhere, it may not be that the same way you left, you return in that fashion. So we come from source, right? Pure source. And then we come into this experience in incarnation, right? But as we return to reconnect, in a sense, we have this journey that we go through, right? And then the journey takes us on these different, you know, dynamics. So when we come in, then we are taking on contrast and, you know, and different things, you know, around the journey where our pure essence of how we came in was not necessarily like that. So the return to the truth of who we are doesn't necessarily, it won't happen in the same way as what, you know, our origin of it. So the reason why that, again, that's important, these experiences that are being created are not always created in a very linear format, but we can make ourselves unwell, I should say. We could get in states of unwellness and disconnect. Sometimes when we create resistance of trying to have something happen in a certain form, we have to be able to sometimes look at things from a different, you know, perspective. And it's interesting because I feel the segue into different things within this. I already know where this is going next in terms of a journal from the eagle's eye perspective and a different vantage point, but we don't have to go there just yet. Let's be present with returning to the wellness factor, but we're going to look at that as returning to self, and returning to the true essence of self is wellness. That is the state of mind. That is the mind mastery that has to be embraced and embodied. So you want to speak to that before we,
Well, this has just popped up as I've looked in the book.
okay.
Mastering the art of being restored involves continually reminding yourself of your truth, of already having all that you need to live the best life possible within your sacred space.
Wow.
Of I am well placed. This high consciousness of wholeness flows through us effortlessly once we embody the truth. And I think that it's so easy, isn't it, for people to find that they're believing, the limiting beliefs that hold them back, listening to other people and assuming because they've said it, it's got to be true. Or when people are angry with us, or that they're being unkind to us, assume that that we're not good enough, rather than they're having a bad day and they're behaving, inappropriately. And I think it's interesting how it always comes back to the relationship we have with ourselves.
Absolutely.
It comes back to that, and
absolutely,
that's a loving one, not an indulgent one, but a loving, honest one that's non-judgmental.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? You just brought up several triggers here, and we're going to have to be present, with each of these. So something else that's coming up, because when you talked about the limitations, before we actually go to the Eagle publication in terms of the perspective, let's have your publication on the Enlightened Limitless Leader to come up, and also the Love Thyself one to come up. So while you're looking for those, I want to provide just a little bit of context to why I feel that the prompting, is happening around these particular journals, and then it will, segue into the Eagles. So one of the things that Gina talks a lot about throughout her leadership experience and what she teaches is really about being the leader of your life. And so if we're going to live without limits, we have to be in that leadership position of our own experience. And that goes back to the divine dominion destiny, okay? And so being able to live and lead with no limits. And one of my premises that I use for a lot of different works is called Live, Love, and Lead from a particular thing. So it could be live, love, and lead, from spirit, live, love, and lead from abundance, live, love, and lead, from like a variety of different areas. It's just kind of a trinity that I leverage. And so in this case, live, love, and lead from limitlessness, and being able to have that higher perspective, around that. And it's important that the living, is the experience that we are having, but we get to create. The love is the beingness, how we have the love for source, love for ourselves, love for our fellow man, or love for the service that we're here to provide. The leading aspect is the embodiment of all of that. Then we have the intentional format that comes from that. So whether live, love, and lead from limitlessness, and understanding that you're returning to your source awareness. Source is unlimited in terms of its expansive energy, infinite intelligence, right? Yeah. So that's another thing that we embody in our states, of consciousness, is our states of limitlessness, limitlessness. Years ago, I used to do a talk that was called Living in Limitless Field, and it kind of sprang forth from different works that I had, which, Your Sky is Your Limit, is, one of my expanding major works that started actually in my first coaching practice. I created it as, as a program, and then it went on to be a publication, different platforms, and then now is a higher end platform, as well. But it is about being beyond, the limitations. So Gina, bring those two up before we go to the Eagle. Okay, and the Love Thyself. All right, so I want you to be present with those publications, because there's something, you know, around that energy there that's building that I feel is going to kind of segue us possibly into another core theme or sub theme. So we'll see how that builds before we get to the eagle.
Okay, so this is what's coming up first.
Okay, which publication is that one?
Love Thyself.
Okay.
Our souls long to reveal deeper truths to us about ourselves or our journey that we've yet to awaken to. Often we desire for others to hear or listen or understand us without judgment or trying to provide a solution, yet we don't give that gift to ourselves.
Mm.
And then from Enlightened Limitless Leaders, it talks about one of the determining factors is that they have a strong, defined sense of purpose. It acts as their North Star, keeping them on track even when things are challenging. For those who have a really strong sense of purpose, there's no question whether they'll take action and forge ahead. There's an alignment with their divine destiny, which creates a natural momentum. Often this is at a completely unconscious level. There's a drive which comes from deep within. At least initially, there may be a sense of confusion as to where it's coming from. Learning to understand and trust in it comes with time and inner reflection. Finally, there comes a sense of deep surrender and faith that you have the skills, experience, and connection to source, which means that success is inevitable. And for me, the intentional journaling is the ideal place for that inner reflection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the main reason why we're guided to provide those types of sacred space experiences is because in an era of information overload, and people are taking in so much, they don't know their own voice. And so they are funneling and filtering their awareness, in a sense, through what others are sharing, and then finding how that fits into their journey. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but if their voice overpowers or overshadows, I should say, your truth and your voice, then you haven't come into the true essence of you in a very authentic way. Therefore, you don't really know yourself because you're just filtering it through others' success templates, you know, that they are, you know, providing. But when you get to know your voice and do the interactive participation within the journals, as Gina was, you know, mentioning, you know, then you will definitely return to the truth of who you are, but it's really returning to yourself anew. And I believe that that's really, that may be the next core thing that's building, you know, is basically, you know, the new experience and who you are as your new self. And Gina has, you know, her leadership publication around, well, several, but, you know, just the one that she was featuring a little bit ago, which that can be brought back out in terms of the authentic, you know, the enlightened, authentic leader, and then the genuinely you, which was the one that was for those over 60 or approaching 60, because it is really about finding and discovering what is right for you in the present moment. And are you being as true and authentic to yourself? Are you being genuinely who you're supposed to be? Because ideally, if you're not being either of these, then you can't create an experience that is true to what you need to live out at this life phase. So before we go to the ego, because what I feel that's happening is that by the time we bring the ego to the table, we're going to be bringing in your other soar energies too. I feel them coming together, but we'll, you know, be present now with the authentic leadership and also the genuinely new, you know, that leadership. And so you can just be present with those and whatever comes up, you know, for you. Yeah, we just see. We never know which ones are going to come up. They just do.
So actually, okay, ask yourself the question, do I know what makes my heart sing? It's time to find out. Do I give myself permission to be curious, to explore and have fun?
Wow.
Remember that you no longer need to identify yourself by what you have been. You can discover who you are now. The relationship with yourself is paramount. It's time to truly be your own best friend and to nurture and love who you are.
Absolutely. And see, that is so perfect. It's amazing again how this experience builds upon itself, because I was saying that there felt like there was going to be another theme coming up, to not necessarily piggyback, but be a companion theme to the experience. And this is all about, the newness, because to create a new experience, there has to be a new you. There has to be a new identity, for sure. So go ahead.
I'm just looking at the Enlightened Authentic Leader.
Yes.
I'm just giggling because people who've not listened to one of these before will have it almost looks as if, this is all planned, but it isn't. I just
No, it's not, by no means.
And opened it up. There's a clear understanding that if you always do what you've always done, you'll continue to get exactly the same result. That being said, at the very heart of evolution is the process of change. Just as mankind has evolved over the millennium to adapt to environmental changes and circumstances, there is a need for today's leaders to adapt and change to thrive in the new level of consciousness. One of the key things which will differentiate the enlightened, authentic leaders from others is their commitment and their capacity to accelerate their evolution. In order to do that, they're ready to seek out and receive support and help.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Wow. Just how it all just ties in together. Yeah, you're right. It would look as if, whoa, this is a planned thing, even though it definitely isn't. And we've made it, clear that we never know what journals are going to come up. But that is the divinity of it all, or the magic, if you will, in terms of how this all flows. And how this pertains to just your life in general is this is how it really is supposed to be. That sometimes there's a core theme that comes up in the moment or in a season in your life, but then you just watch how things kind of organically unfold. And you can take the clues from life and the different things that you journal about, and then start to be with this experience. I call it a process of divine assimilation. It's like putting together a puzzle. And see, when you actually have the journaling experience, you have content that you can eventually piece together to make more sense of the journey that's emerging, in addition to the one that is present. So it's a very unique experience. So go ahead.
It certainly is.
Yes, and that, oh, great. And actually, when you were reading from the Genuinely New, it really takes you back to the publication that we started with, in terms of, what is it that I want? What is my quest? What is my dream? And so being able to identify that, it really is being intentional about now and next level clarity, and understanding that there's a gift in clarity. Clarity is a gift that also is often birthed from sometimes contrast. Sometimes the more that you have experienced something that is kind of an unwanted condition, it helps you to give birth to more of what is wanted, because it causes you to have that deeper desire, for those, particular shifts. And so that's how, when you are doing the intentional journaling, you can allow even the contrast of life to serve more like pressure on the coal that is producing the diamond. And so but you can record those different aspects of your journey, and then track your evolution, through that process. And it just makes the experience much more richer. Would you agree, Gina?
I agree. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, let's bring forth the eagles. So we have mine, and then I'm feeling that there's at least 2 eagles of yours that need to come
So
forth.
is it the leadership ones or the empath ones, do you think?
I'm going to let you be present with that. I just know that there's 2 more, and it's interesting because we have mine that you've contributed to, and that's an empathic one with the eagle. So it may be that the other one is coming forth too, but I just feel that there's 2, because you have 3 publications with the soaring.
I do.
Right. So,
The
but
one
it's
that's
2
jumped
of them.
out,
Mhm.
2 actually, the Soaring to New Heights as an empath and the Soaring to New Heights as a profitable business leader.
Okay, great. And so then we have the economicspreneur. So yeah, so
The
yeah, you got that one. The economics, the evolutionary, that's for the economicspreneur, empathic.
yeah.
Yeah, you've got that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so those are the 3. Those are the 3. And so being able to have this different perspective here, yeah, keep those vibrations up for me just for a moment here. See, what I love about this is that there's different dimensions of this taking place. So I want you to look at this, Gina, turn the publications around to you, where you see the full eagle and he's got a view, it's his head, he's looking. But if you look at each of the publications, yours, where you've got the eagle, where we can fully see the eagle, and then we have one where you see a little bit of it, you see more of the sky. Right. And I remember talking about this in another session that we did, or segment that we did. I think that one was specifically for empaths, but you see that there's those different views. And I believe, in life, we need to have at least 3 views, of course, of a certain perspective. We can see things in different dimensions. So I want you to be present with the energy of that, because what even brought up for us to come to talk about the eagle energy is it was about perspective and new vantage point, so to speak. But you be present with which one is jumping out.
Just before we do, it's interesting, isn't it? So we have a picture and that's a close-up and it's just head and shoulders. This one is actually looking down at the eagle, and you can't see it on the camera very well, but actually looking down at the eagle as it soars over what is a mountain pass. And then this has got a very different perspective.
Right.
That's looking up. So you're looking up into the sky at the eagle soaring through the sky. There's no sight of land at all. All you can see is the clouds in the sky.
Right, right. And that's the different perspectives, and what I was introducing just prior, that we need to have those 3 different views, because you look at the covers and, as you were being present with them, you're seeing that here's the eagle this way, and this way, but before he can or she can even get into flight to start soaring, there had been a perspective shift or a knowledge to know that this is organically what I do, and since we're talking about soaring to new heights and having this new perspective, that means the eagle has had to been in flight before. There's already had to be a certain level of soaring, because that's what they do. But now it's going to a completely different, level. And so now we are talking about really soaring in a new experience. But before people can start to soar in a new experience, they've got to first ground the creation and the metamorphosis aspect of the experience that's being cultivated. And then once that experience is cultivated in awareness, in that state of mind, then it gets into a state of being. It's an embodiment. Then you can start to go to this new aspect of the experience, because there's been a transformation of the mind. Now you can start to soar, so go ahead and be, present, with those. And if anything comes up.
And this is from Soaring to New Heights as a profitable business leader. And it's interesting because I've worked with business leaders in many contexts, and they've been incredibly successful. But what I recognize is that as we move into this new era of consciousness, this new economic environment, something has to be different in order for you to stand out as a business leader. So I want to read this to you.
Okay.
A defining feature of the new order of profitable business leaders is that they consistently tune into their inner wisdom as they recognize its power. They create the time and space away from the white noise and the busyness of daily life to communicate with their inner wisdom, to recognize and listen regularly to the voice of their business. They understand that combining conventional information and data with their inner wisdom gives them the competitive edge. They also recognize that they want to create the very best possible basis for profitability and success at every level. They need to cultivate a close connection to the higher power many call source, universal energy, or God.
Wow. It just all keeps tying back to that, doesn't it? The source connection and us, returning to that awareness within ourselves. And that obviously is what's going to help anyone to soar successfully, right?
Absolutely. So I've just gone to Soaring to New Heights as an empath, and it says, those empaths who are willing to let go of the limitations they've imposed on their own capacity to grow and develop, and who actively seek enlightenment without ego or judgment, will discover that they have access to amazing inner resources which have previously been untapped. Even more significant is the way in which the connection to source, to universal wisdom, and the unlimited resources that offers opens up. And that could be true for empaths or for leaders, but
absolutely,
it's interesting that every time it's coming back to that connection with yourself,
of course,
connection with source.
Absolutely. Because it can't be any other way. No. And and it's interesting that there's actually within the scriptures talks about God saying, I am the vine, ye are the branches, and apart from me, you can do nothing. You connected to me, you'll bear much fruit, but apart from me, you can't. And you think about how many times people try to start what they do without having the source connection, and then wonder why, things aren't working, or even when things are working, they may feel unfulfilled. And it's because of not coming back to the truth, not living, loving, and leading from that truth, from that place, from that connection. And that connection will always call for us to connect at a higher vantage point. So it's not just enough to connect to the truth one time. We have to keep connecting, because there's always a different dimension of that connection that's calling us forth. So, with saying that, you can be present with the evolutionary empathic egopreneurs. Yes. So let me be present with this, because this here, even though it's about a high-end, vantage point, this is all about, yes, creating a new perspective. So read that subtitle.
Successfully soaring with a higher impact and income perspective as an empathic economicspreneur. It's an action planner.
Okay, great. So we have to soar with a new perspective, and it doesn't matter what the topic is. It's when we are going to new levels. In order to be successful, we have to have this higher vantage point. Okay, so whether it's a higher vantage point for the mission, a higher vantage point for livelihood, however, there has to be a higher perspective. And since kind of the group, the cluster here, the Trinity that is presented, we have two publications that are geared towards business and profitability.
Yeah.
When you tie this into the whole of life, which should be a holistic, profitable, experience, we are all economicpreneurs. And when I say that, meaning we have the economy of self, because the economy of self is the true essence, right?
Yeah.
The true essence of source. What is the economy of you? That economy of you is what actually is the experience. because when people experience you, or what I like to call encounter, when people have an encounter with you, they are encountering the economy of you. They're encountering the value that you're displaying, the limitless or the limitation. Someone's having an encounter. So it depends on what is the experience that you're providing. But what we want to cultivate during this time is that new experience, and the new experience from this higher vantage point. So we go back to, go ahead, because I see you bubbling up there. So
I'm just giggling again because this is the paragraph that jumped out.
okay, go ahead.
The new that's being introduced is not the new that's required. It's more like new and improved version of what is. That's the difference between growth models and evolutionary models. Growth means that something just got bigger or more expanded. However, evolution means that something expanded and became a new creation.
Yes.
Much like a caterpillar to a butterfly. And it just makes me giggle that while you're talking, I look in the journal and I just what's jumping out, and so often as you're talking I've already got the paragraph and you're
right.
the paragraph that I've chosen,
right, that's come out to you. Yeah. And it's amazing too, because because we have so many different publications, we're not always aware of remembering what's in.
I have to say sometimes I think to myself, did I write that?
Did I write that? Exactly.
That's all right.
Right. And the reason why I bring that up is because, it's like, well, you all know what's in your books, right? It's like, well, we did when we were writing them, and because we've moved on from, that part of the experience, we return to it, and it's fresh wisdom, even, to us. And again, because we write so much and we speak so much, we create a lot of different content. So yeah, sometimes we come and we're with the journals, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, that is in there, but something just from a demonstrationalist, kind of perspective that I want to point out here is this is why the power of the life codes through the intentional journaling format, and going back to what I was saying before, when you find this type of higher alignment, it's not going to be found, like I said, in the stars or, in the cards. And so as you're seeing this demonstration play out in terms of the guidance, we're being present with publications, with journals here that have the prompts, and they do have the triggers. And so when you can now draw from your own wisdom of what's coming up for you based on just kind of that premise, then you'll see how it's easier to create from this place, versus if you're trying to do some astrological something or look at a tarot card or so, and people get even confused with that, but there's more clarity and more power of being the authority of your reality that is unformed. This here is not predicting a future for you. It is inviting you to create the experience. So we can't necessarily sit here and say, okay, in the next 5 days, this is what's coming up for you. Or there's triggers maybe for a general premise to say, this really is the time to be soaring, or this really is the time to be connecting, to source. And really always there's a time to be connecting to source. It's just, again, at a higher vantage point, and always being prepared to start soaring to new heights. There's always the time for that. But how that experience will play out for you, because your future is not formed, okay? So you get to be the one who starts to mold and shape and be a part of creating this experience, versus relying on something telling you, here's what your future looks like, or some success template that's telling you, you have to do it this way. You get to decide and define, and then create the doing part, which is the beingness. So I just felt guided to, to share that, so that people can see, here we are, we're being present with journals, And I definitely am doing some reading in terms of being present, you know, with the journal, but it's in a very different type of way. But when you can do this for yourself, yeah, you feel more in control, or more in dominion, more in authority of, you know, of your reality. So go ahead, Gina. I I just felt guided to share that.
I think that's really powerful. But I absolutely agree with you. I don't think there's anything more that needs to be said about it, really.
Yeah, well, I figured that you would agree with that because you've been, you know, on this journey, you know, for yourself, and that you've, you know, been creating journals, and even some of your first books, like you said, you've created different variations of journals, but now with this experience, with it being more intentional, with a variety, we see how we have these different categories. And something that you brought up earlier, which is very, you know, important to note, that I want to revisit, is that it's different when you have just a journal that you're just kind of, I don't say brain dumping in a sense, but when you have just a journal and you're just putting everything in it, you're just journaling, it's not as powerful when there are these different categories that you can journal in, you know, and have those specific, you know, in there. You're able to track your evolution better when you can come and say, look at the journal for authenticity, look at the journal for being genuine, look at the journal for profitability in business and, you know, leadership, you know, and wellness.
The power is in two directions, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
One is that as you are going through the experience of journaling, you know, if there is an intention and a focus behind it, that can be incredibly powerful. But the other thing that I've found with the journaling that I've done, when I used to do general journaling, it was, whilst the thoughts were really powerful, if I wanted to go back and revisit, I used to have to plow through
right. Yeah, right.
in order to get to the bit that I was looking for. Whereas with this, it's refined. It's almost like having a filing cabinet. When I go back to look at it, I will go back and I can look and know, right, that was about this particular theme, aspect, or challenge, and I can go to that. And so it just seems to me that it's more accessible in terms of accessing your inner wisdom on that particular theme, whatever that might be. But also it's much more accessible in terms of then utilizing that at a later date when you want to perhaps use that wisdom in a completely different way.
Absolutely. Well stated. That was perfect. I couldn't agree more. All right. So you want to be present with, is there another stack jumping out at you or anything that is calling to you, you know, during this time?
I think, and not the stack, but just the book. And that's taking the bullshit out of business.
Oh, for sure.
And
or out of life or whatever, you know.
Out of life, yeah. How, if you've been listening to this and you're not convinced about intentional journaling, I think you need to ask yourself the question, why? I'm too busy doesn't cut it, because we're talking about a few minutes every day. I'm dyslexic. Well, actually, nobody else is going to read it unless you share it. So your spelling, your handwriting, none of that matters. This is about getting the essence of your thoughts. And we're very good at bullshitting ourselves and making excuses. And so I think what seemed to bring this full circle really is, if this is all about experiences, then ultimately be aware, be very self-aware about how often you get in your own way. And, you know, you're going to take, you know, if you are resisting the premise that we are sharing with you, ask yourself why. What is it that you're frightened of? In terms of being able to release that inner essence and that inner wisdom. And of course, journaling is quite useful to do a brain dump if you're feeling cross or frustrated or whatever, or you feel somebody has done you a disservice. Yeah, use a journal to just brain dump it and let it go. But we're talking about journaling in a very different way. And this is about really taking the opportunity to use this as a technique to support your evolution.
Absolutely.
And to become the very best version of you. And through that, use that as a platform to be the best version of you tomorrow and the next day and the next day and so on. So, you know, just be conscious of how often you get in your own way and how often you bullshit yourself.
Right. So is there anything from there that you're going to share, or was it just to bring that up just from, you know, the perspective that you shared from, or
just the perspective, really.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes.
But just
well, no. Go page 5, please.
Okay.
I don't know what's on page 5.
Page 5 is bullshit comes in many forms.
Okay. Yeah, page 5 just jumped out. Like I said, I have no idea what's on page 5, but now you're revealing that. Yeah, so definitely, there we go.
And it shares an example of one of the businesses I worked with where 3 siblings had inherited a hotel that was doing very, very badly. And, you know, so I'll just share this paragraph because we are so good at bullshitting ourselves. So in those early discussions, my bullshit meter was running at an optimum level. Each director had a very insular view of the contribution they and their siblings were making, and of how the hotel could be made into a going concern. 3 very different stories. They felt put upon and resentful, believing that they were working considerably harder than their siblings, when the reality is that they all had a perspective that they were hard done by, and in reality, none of them were actually doing what was needed. But through listening to initially my bullshit meter and then developing their own, they were able to bring the hotel back from the brink of disaster. It was in £8 million worth of debt and empty, to being an award-winning hotel, which pre-pandemic was 87% occupancy, which is very, very high for a hotel. And
absolutely. I have a background in hotel management, and so you're right. An 87% occupancy is very high, you know. Yeah, definitely. And then to come from doing poorly to now to that, definitely, that is great. One of the things that, with that being read and the core theme around that, or the chapter heading or so, was about the many forms. And that's where we have to be more aware of those different forms, because just because you clear it up in one area, there could be another form, or you could be blindsided to another form. This is where the higher perspective in terms of the ego energy comes, of being able to see things from a higher perspective, and also too, even a butterfly perspective, because it has the panoramic view. So, but also the Phoenix perspective too, you know, which we have a Phoenix publication as well. So being able to see things from the higher vantage point helps you not to BS yourself, and to be able to spot it, because it's not just directly right there, even though it can be directly right there in front of you, but you can be missing it. A lot of times we overlook what's right there. But sometimes when you have a more expanded and ascended awareness and viewpoint, you can see things from so many different angles, you know, that you don't kid yourself, and that you can move forward, you know, effectively. So so that, you know, just came up. But it's interesting, again, here we are in this experience, right? And then page 5, again, like I said, I have no clue what page 5 is about or anything. And then it comes out that this is one of the areas that needed to be spoken about, so that people can know that, yes, as you're moving forward, you do have to be aware. And that's where this process allows you to be very present and very aware of what's actually going on within you. So that, again, you can track your evolution. You can know where you are. You can know if you're kidding yourself, because it's out there right in front of you in your face. You know, you have to look at that and then see what are the what's the potential around this for the advancement and the expansion, and ultimately, the acceleration into that. So, okay, so Gina, so be present. If anything else is jumping out, to you, this experience building from this holistic, vantage point is very important, and being intentional about creating this experience. So yeah, I just love this,
Nothing at the moment is jumping out at me.
Okay, so let me be present here, because I'm feeling the energy of 5. So that means that there's at least 5 more publications that are wanting to, in some form or fashion, be made aware that there's something around. So if it's not a publication, is there a group? And when I say a group, meaning it just may be to sit with the energy.
I think maybe then the empaths.
Yes, that's actually what I was feeling. So let's do this. So let's bring your empath publications and mine as well. But of course you won't be able to hold all those up, but at least get them close. So we'll be present with the empathic strand, and that may be where the vibration of 5, it's just coming up, for that. But we'll see, but it is funny that, after the BS, we talk about the empaths, which do BS themselves.
They've created an art form, I think.
Sure, but you're right, and a science.
Right, so there's the 3 from you.
Okay. Well, there's actually 4 empaths.
Right, what have I missed? Sorry.
Because the eagle one is an empath too.
Right.
But we've been in that one, so we can just keep these 3 here.
So those are the other 3 then.
Yeah, those are the other 3.
There are those. And then
and then we have yours. Now that's a different. Wow. Isn't that amazing though? That just, being present with that, that's, all these publications here that have been, created from our experiences. And now being shared with others for them to have, their own experiences.
Yeah.
Okay, so being present with the energy of those, is there a core theme coming up, or any particular one? Actually, what's coming up for me is the 2 acceleration ones are kind of vibrationally jumping out, but there may be others that come up for you prior. Okay, so what's coming up in the core theme is about it's new levels of acceleration. So the reason why this is important is because sometimes we can get very one-dimensional in terms of what acceleration means, right? Yeah. And acceleration, of course, means, kind of, a quantum process, in a sense, a more rapid, process, or so, a catapulting type of, experience. But what's coming up is people are being intentional about creating this new experience for themselves. It is time to accelerate it, but there has to be a new approach to acceleration. So whether the publications are going to provide some insight or wisdom around that as a trigger, we just have to see. But I just know that this is the invitation to this higher level, or this new approach to to acceleration. So people have to kind of be present with that, and what are these new levels of acceleration, or a new approach to, to acceleration. So anything that's coming up for you from any of those? Oh yes, oh yes.
Why the need for acceleration? There's a higher calling during this time for empaths to take their rightful positions to serve the masses in a variety of ways, through creative expression that's carried out through high-end services. It's time to accelerate this higher calling and make a difference in the world. And again, especially in the new era business marketplace. One thing about empaths that's not commonly known is that they're hardwired for high-end work, providing a more expanded experience through leadership and entrepreneurship. Combining leadership and entrepreneurship will be the highest service combination for making an impact and income with the lighter ascension frameworks.
So what's coming up actually from there is the new approach for those who, let's say, are leaders, but don't have the entrepreneurial expression. That's a new approach, you know, to acceleration, and vice versa. Those who are entrepreneurs, but maybe aren't leveraging the leadership aspect, you know, being more in that role. Having the combination of those is a new approach. Now, for someone who's not empathic or just, this can apply to life in general. Yeah. Where do you need to cross-pollinate? Oh, here we go. You know, the cross-pollination energy becoming, you know, entering in soon from those publications. Where do you need to combine forces to take a new approach? So that's a way to look at something differently, knowing that you're called up higher, whether in life, in business, however, and being sensitive, whether you are labeled empath or not. You have the ability to be empathic, the ability to be sensitive to timing, to approaches, to just different ways of beingness. And so being able to be about the business of you, in a sense, and lead your life from that place. It doesn't matter, you know, kind of what the dynamics are. Just see how you can take different approaches and then accelerate yourself, you know, in that way. So go ahead, Gina.
So this is out of accelerate your empathic potential. Be honest with yourself, really honest.
Stop BSing yourself, right?
Yeah, take radical responsibility for what has been before and for the decision to choose a different way of being and doing going forward. You are designed to be a magnificent, powerful, limitless being, and it's your right and your responsibility to own your design and to fulfill your divine purpose. And then actually, the next paragraph is not jumping, but the next one is, every bit of your experience has value in the lesson it offers you if you choose to learn it. It also offers you a range of experience and expertise, which can be incredibly valuable to others to help them move forward.
Incredible. Well, here we go. Experience and choice. Once again, you know, these things that keep weaving themselves in because they're of high importance, of course. But the time for acceleration in like that publication of yours is about accelerating the potential. And so how do we look at new ways to accelerate, you know, the potential? And because people have tried to reach their potential, I'm sure, in different levels. But again, this is calling for something new. A new experience calls for new ways of beingness towards that experience, you know, the new approaches. So what you shared through there was very right on point, of course, you know, just in terms of people thinking about, the next level. And what's really great about that particular publication, the simple fact that it is a self-audit, you know, type of publication, it gives people an opportunity to do inventory. So as you're doing inventory, you can look at ways that you have accelerated yourself in the past, but now see how you can accelerate yourself moving forward. And maybe there are some of the elements of how you have accelerated yourself before, but now you bring it into a newer context and it kind of takes on just a different level of embodiment. So yeah, that, you know, was coming up. So the cross-pollination energy is coming in, but before we go there, still be present with the empathic, you know, pile there and see if there's anything else that, you know, that comes out, you know, for you. And then if not, you can move over to the cross-pollination.
No, I think cross-pollination. I've just got to find it. Bear with me.
Surrounded and drowned in intentionality. Yeah. I must say, as you're looking for those, I tell you, doing these segments, it has really been, as I mentioned before, it's really been a joy. And just the divinity of the entire, process is just so unique.
So I'm looking for the wrong color book. So it's the Be Water Cross Industries factors they were talking about, isn't it?
It is, but we're going to bring in both B energies. So go back to bring also in to the
Billionaire blog.
Yes. So yeah, so let's be present with both of those energies there, because all of this is about calling people up higher and developing themselves in really unique ways. Looking at the garden of who you are. Oh, bring your garden book up. So put those down for a moment. We're going to go to your garden book. Bring your garden book, because that energy came up. Okay, so be present with that publication. And if something comes up around that, you go in and read. If not, just, there's a trigger there, because that came up for a reason. I feel like we need to be in that vibration before we actually do bring more of the cross-pollination energy in.
There's no such thing as failure.
Oh, perfect.
One of the principles I teach is that the only failures are the failures to give the failure to give things a go, or the failure to learn when things do not go to plan. It's the principle which underpins success in leadership, in life, and in gardening. One of my business clients has been Beth Chatto Gardens. Their overriding principle, which gained her world acclaim, was right place, right plant. Understanding the best conditions for success is a game changer. You can learn from others through courses, coaching, or books, or you can learn from experience. Recognize you're a card-carrying student of life. Learning from our mistakes offers a great opportunity to grow and develop. Encouraging your children, your team, or whole staff to do the same by creating a learning culture is vital if you want those involved to reach their full potential.
Oh my word. Wow, how perfect was that?
Yeah.
That, something that jumped out too was, what was it? The right plant. What was the
right place, right plant?
There you go. Right place, right plant. And I think that is perfect before we segue to the cross-pollination, the bee water factor, because that one is all about industry gardening. And sometimes, right place, right plant. We can think of that even in terms of planting yourself. Oh, here we go. There it is. So go ahead and bring up the planted, the Psalms 1:3, men and women, because that's being planted, by the river. So this is just interesting again, how these journals, how they jump out.
I'm smiling to myself because when I started, everything was in neat piles of sets, and
yeah, of course,
all over the place.
Oh, of course. Yes, definitely. So there's something here for that one, and the bee water, the bee water one. But I also feel that we're going to actually go back to your garden one at some point too. So we'll have those there. So just be with the vibration, of that, because the cross-pollination brought us to this, but it is more at this point about the cultivation and the being planted. And we think about being planted, that's being, very grounded, very rooted.
So this is out of the Planted by the Rivers. Keeping ourselves planted in his goodness allows us to demonstrate to others that we are connected to the one true source. Learn our rivers of life will reflect and represent that we are truly planted in him, as Psalm chapter 1 verse 3, men and women.
Yes, so there we go. So it's about when we say right place, right plant, even though that's in a different, context, but for this one, it's about being rightly planted, and it goes back to the source connection, being planted in source. and being connected. And then that leads to the bearing of fruit. That leads to also being in the right place at the right time, being rightly planted, right? And guess what? Then you are the plant within the plant. Get that? You are the plant within the plant. You know, you are the garden. Gardens are what? They're planted, right? You are the garden within the garden, the experience within the experience, plant within the plant, planted in source and planted in the right, you know, place. So, yeah.
Out of the be water, this is what's jumping out of here. As a cross-industries gardener, you have to be water and know that you are prepared at any time to adapt to new ways of beingness as you pollinate and water different arenas within your wisdom. As you best prepare to show up ready to serve, allow yourself to be rid of any of your previous biases and or whatever you believe is best for your tribe, and be open to a higher level of truth and solutions to unfold for greater impact and increase.
Wow, incredible. I mean, just mind-blowing here. Just how this all just continues, you know, to tie in. And even though we've done this several times, it's always still just so amazing.
And it's always so different.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, the consistency is there, you know, just in terms of the unfolding, you know. And there was something, you know, within what you were reading. I'm trying to be present with what it was because I got so excited, then it slipped from, you know,
Read it again.
Something. Yes, if you don't mind, because it actually ties back into. Oh, I know you said about being water, right? In which the be water, BEE water, you know, is the cross industry factor, so to speak. But you think about it, you have to be water. Then the journal that you just read from prior to that was about being planted by the river.
Yeah.
So, you know, the streams, the source connection, you know, the rivers of life, and being water, you can only be what you've embodied. So if you're planted, and you think about when a tree or so is planted by the river, its roots are running where? Down deep, but it's drawing water from the river in which it's planted by. And think about yourself being a tree. And if you're drawing water with these deep roots, then you can give that out, you know. So go ahead, because I can feel myself about to go into a whole nother there. So
I was just thinking, you know, there is no garden without water. There is no life without water. And when we become the essence of ourselves, we have the opportunity to provide that life essence for other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, within one of my brandings, you know, statements, you know, I embody the element of water, you know, and being able to be water and be the epitome of what Bruce Lee talks about. You know, we need to be water. Water is flexible, it's fluid, and it also can take on the shape and nature of anything. If you pour water into a cup, it takes on that shape, you know, and just whatever it's in. But it also is very expansive. It's the most powerful element in the world, in earth, you know. And so when we think about leveraging that vibration in all that we do, that is the true source connection. And from the spiritual perspective, or within, let's say, the Christian paradigm perspective, you know, there's the baptism through water, you know, water baptism, and bringing you into that higher connection. So it's amazing how the power of that is leveraged in so many different ways. And when we embrace and embody that, and we get that into our beingness, that's how we're creating these different experiences. This is where we have become a well-watered garden, a well-nurtured garden. And then what do people do when they come to gardens? They admire it, of course, for the beauty and just the nature of it. But if there's the ability to pick from that garden, they're able to do that. And don't we want our experiences to be like that, where
Absolutely.
what we've cultivated, other people, we share that, and other people can benefit from that harvest or pick from, that garden.
I absolutely agree with you. And ultimately, the only person who is going to change anything really for you, going to give you the opportunity to be the best version of you can be, is you.
Absolutely.
And, back to the, are you being honest with yourself? What are the patterns? What are your habits? Are they supporting you in your growth and evolution, or are they holding you back?
Right, right. And we do have to examine it, and something else that came up when you were reading was really going back to the new approaches. Everything continues to tie back to source, of course, but that's where you have to have even a new approach. And on that note, bring up your favorite little journal of the Fresh New Start with God. And because that's really the rediscovery. And I'll have you to read that subtitle.
Subtitle is an inspirational journal for rediscovering your true connection to source power and life purpose.
Right. So this is a new start. So everything's about the new experience. So as we have a new start, a new fresh start, right? Not just a new start, it's a fresh new start.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to be fresh, having a fresh new start daily, right? So that we can gain that higher perspective and we can rediscover that which is already there, but now we need to experience this, from another vantage point. And I, believe that was the journal to really come to, because everything again keeps tying back to source, but it's tying back to creating this new energy. And two, you get to even create your next level, even with source, cultivate that, because it's a relationship. And so when you're in partnership in this relationship, what are you and source doing together in this new experience, to create a new experience?
So this is what jumps out. Embracing this new understanding is where our true purpose and mission in life begins to emerge, so that our new experience with God can transform not only our lives, but also others in a massive way. You can only discover your next level of purpose by knowing who you truly are, what God says about you and or desires for your life at this higher level.
Wow.
Allow this journal to become your sacred space of creating a conscious communion and a new start with God.
I just, well, what can we say, Gina? I mean, just the consistency of how this continues to unfold, because everything keeps tying back into different core themes, of a more cohesive thing. So coming back to the newness and the genuineness and the authenticity and the essence, okay, because what you just read basically is an indication, to all of that. So having this fresh new start and making sure, read that part again. Just read that part again that you read from there.
Embracing this new understanding is where our true purpose and mission in life begins to emerge, so that our new experience with God can transform not only our lives, but also others in a massive way. You can only discover your next level of purpose by knowing who you truly are, what God says about you and or desires for your life at this higher level.
Absolutely. And so how do you discover who you truly are? How do you discover the essence of you? How do you discover the authentic, enlightened leader that you are, and leading in multiple ways, and how do you discover that genuinely new vibration of yourself? Because in order to have a new start with anything or anyone, you have to have a new start with you. But having the new start with source first, right? So that you can have yourself planted, accurately planted, rightly planted, so then you can flow, from that place. Just Amazing. Just, I mean, just what can we say? I mean, just oh, it's just incredible. All right, so we've definitely shared, quite a few, but this was an intensive, for sure. So let's just be present with the space here. And some others may jump up or so, even just from a perspective of whether we go into them or not. It just can be just something that just adds, to the theme. But I'm sensing it's interesting because I'm feeling like a different type of completion is coming into play, but it's not feeling complete just yet. It's like it's a wrapping, a winding down, but I still feel that there's some other little significant, subtle yet significant little nuggets, or a conversation or so that still needs to be had so we can be present. So, actually I'm being guided to talk more about the life code. So I'm just
I get a sense that in terms of the journals, that was a good place for us to finish. But I think what strikes me is that the practical, how this impacts, and I think the life codes is a perfect way to bring it all. It's where you started, and it brings it all to fruition.
Yes. Okay, great. So I'm resonating with that, for sure. The practicality. So we're going to go there because you brought that up, goes back to the simplicity. When people can witness this type of demonstration and know that this is how this can operate in your life consistently. And the life codes will continue to reveal to you different levels and newness each time, and I actually have linked, I'll make sure in the description that I have actually some very intentional life decoding, journals within the description. We don't have those, present, here, but I just feel guided because that can give more of a general premise of decoding, your life and decoding different areas with intentionality. Now, the other journals are provided for that as well, but they don't necessarily get into the details around how you actually do the decoding. It's kind of happening as you are just engaging the experience. And then once you see what comes up, and you can make whatever tweaks, divine editings that need to happen for that in terms of you putting it into an action plan, then that's when you're able to then recode your reality. And people can't really recode their reality without having the re-engineered, aspect. Now, something that is coming up, we may not go into them, but do bring up the Metamorphosis Journals. For some reason, those are, yeah, that energy is coming up. And I guess it is just going back to the experience. Here we go. So this, bring it home.
Is there another Metamorphosis book?
Yes, there's another one. There's just the standard, one.
The Human Butterfly Effect.
No, but you can bring that one up. It's the other Millionaire Metamorphosis. The other one is the black one. But you know what? That one may not be coming up. Just let these be present. Don't worry about looking for the other one if you can't find it.
I found it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So put that one though behind. Let that one be behind, because this is about the butterfly energy here. This is about the metamorphosis into creating the experience through the life purpose. So basically, as you are discovering your new life purpose, you're going to have an effect. So the human butterfly effect, if you think about just the butterfly effect in general, it's a butterfly can flap its wings in one area and create this ripple effect, this vibration. And in some places, it can either create a harvest or it can create chaos, in a sense. It operates very much the same with who we are. That's why we have to be very intentional about what we do. And when you are in a metamorphosis state, which most are, this is where you are developing this newness because you're becoming something new, a new creation, right? And
Yeah.
so what even triggered this, the theme today was around the experience. And that's where Gina started with, and it prompted from these particular publications. So we, would be remiss in a sense to not actually bring forth those publications before closing out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and remember what I said. I said, I feel like we're winding down, right?
Yeah.
But I was not feeling
Complete.
complete. But what it is that we were completing kind of that phase with that particular theme. But something was saying there's some subtle yet significant little stuff that's coming up too, which it still does tie back into the source connection.
Yeah.
But again, now when you come through this new creation, because if you think about it, even through this experience, people have actually been having a metamorphosis. They've been having a transformation and evolutionary experience to come into new awarenesses. So then they can do what? Have that new perspective, that new vantage point, and then do what? Soar to new heights, right? But soar to new heights and have this awareness by being planted, rightly planted in source, and then discovering what this new potential is for purpose. And so, like you said, so it all just continues to be this one big extravagant tapestry. And going back to what I was saying before about divine assimilation. So it's bringing the pieces of the puzzle together, the different aspects of the journey, and now starting to assimilate, bringing form to what seemed to be unformed. So Gina, there is something around, the experience.
So this is what pops out of the Millionaire Monarch Metamorphosis Factor.
Mm-hmm.
This is all about transforming and evolving into the best version of yourself as a monarch leader as you extract your encoding to launch your life and leadership anew from your millionaire cocoon.
Mm-hmm.
You want to explore the evolution of who you have become versus the journey that you've evolved from.
Mm-hmm.
The journey is not the butterfly. The butterfly is the evolution of your metamorphosis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me get you to turn, and you may have to find it, but there's a page that will definitely ask about the experience. It will, prompt them in terms of, either who do you have to be in this experience, or what are you creating, or something around that, because all of this has been about being intentional about creation of this new experience. And I believe that this just really ties it home.
Is it this one? Who did I have to become in order to successfully evolve, achieve, and sustain this new millionaire monarch experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And so that's something for people to really sit with, because that is the highest level of intentionality.
Yeah.
And then when you discover the highest level of intentionality, what are you creating in this? When we say a millionaire experience, again, it's not from the standpoint of creating $1 million or so. It's from looking at your life in the richness through your experience. And what are you creating, whether in health, relationships, and career or so, just holistically, what is being created that makes you feel like you're having a millionaire, $1 million type of experience. And what does this mean for your life purpose? Because you've evolved and you've metamorphosized, and then evolutionized. Now we have to optimize what is being optimized at this point, because the journey is, it's not the butterfly. But all this is, it's just magnificent how all this ties in, because we go back to Gina, even with, the publications around, the soaring, right? People have to prepare to take flight. And something that came up early for me too within this session was about the preparation for the experience. And so all of this has, been tying into the preparation and understanding we have to be intentional. And there kind of has been the roadmap in terms of being planted in source. All these things keep jumping out, but the life purpose, there's still something there around that. So
this is what's popping out of the human butterfly effect.
mm-hmm.
It's time to discover your significant part in the greater scheme of life and align with your ultimate purpose for being here.
Small changes in your everyday life can make a huge difference and dynamically shift things for the better. It can cause a ripple of great change for breakthroughs for ourselves, the people in our lives, and for the world at large.
Wow. It just doesn't cease to amaze me. I'm sure those who, are participating with this are becoming even more mind blown. How could you not, become even more mind blown from this experience, and to see that this is what life is trying to communicate in these ways, giving us the clues, weaving things together. And though they may be seem fragmented, like what Gina's example, where she says, I come here and these journals, I assure you, they are organized. But as we are going along, one's here, one's there, then we're having to combine here, we're having to do this, and they get scattered or however. And sometimes people can feel like that with the journey. Well, the cocoon process, the metamorphosis, is a very unformed state. The caterpillar enters in a form, but during the process, the breakdown within the chrysalis, it becomes unformed. Why? Because it is coming into a new formation. So even though we come, like Gina says, I have these journals and they're organized, but by the time this metamorphosis, as we're breaking down the different things within here, it comes unformed. But do we see how the formation continues to happen? And in this experience, it has been about the new formation, and just as the BS can come in many forms, your greater potential does too. And so this gets you into those many forms so that you can understand your life purpose, your leadership calling to your life, and being connected in source to live, love, and lead from spirit, or live, love, lead from source. And then bring all of this in, then take your experiences from your journey that we've clarified. The journey is not the butterfly, but what do you do with the content of that journey? Because that's what the cocoon produces, is the content. You see what Gina and I have provided in terms of these publications. These publications are for people to have these different experiences, for themselves, and to discover that. But we have other works that we do that's, beyond, these publications, but we still leverage the publications, but more in an evolutionary way. But you get to have that metamorphosis experience, for yourself, and it's been demonstrated. And now that you have some context to it, now you can start to bring some form so that you can start to take off. So yeah, this has been great. Yeah. Okay. So Gina, something I want to say before we do start, closing out. And for those who definitely feel a resonance with this and have been intrigued by not just this particular segment, but maybe even others that you've, had the opportunity to experience, is that if you're looking to take what you're doing to the next level and want to leverage the practice of intentional journaling, from a greater vantage point, then there's going to be information below within the description where you can learn how to participate with Gina and I in next level, initiatives, and also learn how to do this for yourself in terms of being able to decode your life and read your life, in a sense, and create the form for your own now and future, so to speak. And so, yeah, and then also too, there's going to be information just how you can get in touch, with us. And then the publications that have been featured today, which I know are in great abundance. And what will happen is I will share the Amazon pages. And this is something I actually don't do for mine, because it's to send people to my page with all those publications. It's like, I would never wish that on anyone in a sense, but I am actually feeling guided to provide that experience. So I will have my Amazon link there too. We'll have as many of the publications as we can, have within the description, but ultimately you'll have the links, to both of our pages. So you'll be able to see the works that were provided today, and then also just, just other ones. But so Gina, we've been having this series here, and before we actually close out, I would really love to hear kind of about, your highlights, from this, because we've done several segments and we featured a lot of different journals, and the journals they always come to life, just the various ones that, have wanted to be, showcased. So before we actually do some wrap up around that, let's just have a little bit of conversation or so just about just this overall experience in terms of, the series.
I think when I first started doing this with you, the connectivity of the theme which emerged. Well, initially when we did some of these intensives, there was a theme set up, and I was struck by how, as we moved from journal to journal, and there was no plan, it was just what popped up really, that there was a connectivity to the, if you like, the macro level, or the micro level, that the theme built one upon the other, and there was very definitely a sense of that structure emerging, but each one built on the other, so that the overall was much more powerful than the individual segments. As we've moved on to, we don't have a theme, we have all of the journals, and the theme emerges. What I'm struck by is the power of trusting that process and listening to what's speaking to us without filtering it and saying, well, you're sitting here with a bunch of books, so, and you say, this one's calling to me. But it is interesting how often a book will appear on the top of a pile, or a book that's at the bottom of the pile will be sort of metaphorically waving at you to say, and you open the book, and I just open the book and I scan the page without reading, but it's almost as if one paragraph is in bold when the others are not, or it just pops out of the page and says, this is what needs to be read. And if you look, and we've been going for some considerable amount of time, there's not been one of the books or readings that did not fit. There's not been one that didn't build on the other. And that for me is quite miraculous, and something that I really enjoy, the power of that, and just surrendering to it rather than having to have a strategic plan about where you're going and what you're going to say.
Absolutely. And that is, I love that you said that. And that is the brilliance and the magic and the divinity. And so, for those who would definitely like to experience something like this, and especially with us, in a live setting or a private setting, so they can experience that power for themselves, with just the experience. And it doesn't matter what the journals are that that they have, that they bring, of hours or so. We could be with a variety of people and everyone would benefit greatly.
I think the other thing that strikes me is that no matter how we do it, and whether we've been designing things, to share with other people, there is always such a lot that is absolutely personal. And out of the process, the growth is not only for the person who is dipping into the books, but there's growth for everybody.
For us as well, absolutely. It's a holistic experience, and it's a win-win. And that's why even what I was saying, that we've created these publications, and some because we have created so many in abundance that we're not always just remembering, oh, this one is in this specific book or on this page, or so or any of that. And so Yeah, I know, right? And but so when we are brought to the works again, we are inspired and empowered for ourselves
And
as well.
interestingly, very often when I think I said a little bit earlier that I read it and I think,
Did I write that?
did
Yeah.
I write that? Yes, so it speaks not only to the reader, but speaks to us as authors when we read it again.
Absolutely, because then we're returning to that wisdom and we're gaining new insight because we are evolving. What it is we're having a fresh new experience.
Yeah. The starting point's always going to be different, isn't it?
Yeah.
But inevitably, as you evolve, or you are going to see things from a different perspective,
And you're supposed to, right? And then take new approaches, from there, and then keep soaring, of course, to newer heights and keep evolving and having this higher vantage point, this higher perspective. And that's, what needs to be taking place. So,
very much.
so this has been, like I said, this has been beyond wonderful. And as I mentioned, that there'll be, information in the description for those who would love to, have their own journaling, experience or so. And I'll have all the information there. But again, for those who would like to actually participate with both Gina and I in a setting of this nature, or, individually, as well. So there'll be information, like I said, for that. And I'm going to have Gina, as I always do, to wrap up, for us. But before I have her to wrap up, one of the things I always love to impart before these sessions or segments end is that I always give the reminder, always remember that your divine destiny, or as I say, your divine dominion destiny, isn't found in the stars or in the cards, but it is in the life codes. And so, yes, maybe people are finding some answers and some clarity and some things about their future within stars and cards, so to speak. But the dominion destiny just will not be found in those. It's time for new triggers. It's time for new promptings in life. Let your own life prompt you versus something else externally. And when I say something else externally, even your life that's external is still coming from within, but it will point you to go to a deeper level within yourself, to connect to that source, and to then now create your destiny anew and allow new life triggers to facilitate that. And you've seen through this session here or other parts of the series is that life can unfold and be that miraculous for you when you allow it and allow that wisdom to come forth from you so that you can ultimately, yes, change your reality and shape your own destiny. So with that, want you all to stay blessed for sure. And thank you for participating with this experience here. And Gina, of course, I want to thank you so much because this has been nothing short of magnificent and brilliant once again. And the entire series has just been beyond amazing. So I will turn it over to you for final words here. And
I'd like to say thank you. It's been a joy to be part of this.
Thank you.
And, the insights and the wisdom and strength that comes from such a process is just an opportunity for you to grow. And what I would say to you is, when you are on your deathbed, and I'd like you to be 732, I don't like to live it. Of course. Looking back at your life, what are you going to think about the life that you've led? Are you going to regret the things that you haven't done? Are you going to regret the fact that you stayed in what you felt was safe in your comfort zone, but was playing small? Or are you going to be celebrating the fact that you've stepped into your genuine power, that you have become the leader of your own life, and then you have acted as the leader of leaders to other people? because we are at a watershed. You know, this beautiful planet that we call home, we as human beings have the opportunity to do things differently moving forward. But we need people who are going to step into that best version of themselves, where compassion and integrity and kindness and courage are at the very heart of what you do. And the purpose of all of our work is to help you be that very best being you can be. So thank you very much for joining us. And I really urge you, don't just leave it at this point. This is just a launch pad. Take the opportunity, invest in yourself, because that investment will pay dividends, not only for you, but all the people that you have contact with. So thanks again. Take care. And we look forward to meeting you in person sometime soon.